Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Evening.
good evening, all. Good evening. Just good evening, everyone, and welcome to season 2021 mid-season round table. The four of us, the collected Bengals Knights of this round table, have come together, as is the tradition, to bring to the world the best analysis, the best feedback upon the Bengals season thus far. At the moment, after the poor performance, let's just say, against the Cleveland Browns, we are currently 5-4, heading into the season bye. Thus, with the mid-season break, it seems a convenient time to gather all our thoughts, process them, and then unleash them to the world. I'm Mike Smith at Yadar Teaches Zumba on Twitter. I'm going to be chairing this conversation. I'm going to be chairing this conversation this evening. And joining me to my right on my screen is Jamie Rowe. Jamie, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm okay. It's it's a grim November evening, and it feels an awful lot grimmer after Sunday, I have to say.
It did feel a bit grim after Sunday, but we'll try and cheer you up with this chat this evening. Next on my hit list, live from, I believe, South London, Andrew Dockerell.
Evening. I feel a bit left out here without the black glasses, I have to say. There's a bit of a trend.
Well, treasure your eyesight, son, because it's a cruel world not being able to see about 2 inches in front of your face and being colorblind as well. But it's all right. But enjoy it while you can. And lastly, but by no means least, a newcomer to the contribution this evening, making his debut, our already nominated Rookie of the Year. It's Paris Pinney. Paris, welcome.
Hello there. That's very, very generous of you to say.
Oh no! Well, as you're a newcomer, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been a Bengals fan, and how you managed to come across our little band of merry men in our group?
I've been a Bengals fan since 2005, actually. So since the sort of Chad Johnson, Carson Palmer, Rudy Johnson, TJ Hushmanzada days. So a fair amount of time. Fair amount of misery as well, as much as joy in that time. But and obviously I've recently joined Twitter this year and came across the page this year, really. So sort of just got involved that way.
Excellent. So Twitter, for once, delivers a positive. So we're very happy to have you on board, and thank you very much for accepting our invite. So I thought we'd just kick off this evening, gents, with just to get a bit of momentum. First and foremost, what has been your favourite moment thus far in the 5-4 campaign? Jamie, let's kick off.
I mean, I'm glad I'm going first because I'm going to pick the very, very obvious one. The evening where we knocked off Baltimore in Baltimore, just astounding. Sort of complete 60 minutes of football, dominated on offense, on defense, on special teams. Just absolutely everybody came to the party on that day, and at that point, it sent the Bengals top of the AFC. It really couldn't look any better than that, and it was kind of enjoyable getting one over on a team that for the last couple of years really had our number, and sort of we'd been brutalized by Lamar Jackson the last couple of years, and we kept him nice and quiet.
It was easily the highlight of the season, wasn't it? The fact that the Bengals weren't by any stretch of the imagination the favourite to go in there. Lamar Jackson was somewhat the league darling, wasn't he? He was odds on to be MVP, but to go in there and essentially it was like men against boys at time to handle them was quite unbelievable. So a solid start there. Paris.
Well, Jamie's
favourite moment thus far.
I mean, for me, individually, it was Jamar Chase against Marlon Humphrey in that secondary. He just absolutely took them to the cleaners. I think it was so impressive. I mean, Marlon Humphrey's at least a top 5 corner, if not possibly the best corner in the league, and he just destroyed him basically.
it was a stellar performance that day from Jamar Chase. One of many, but yeah, I'd have to agree it's probably the outstanding performance in that one-on-one moment, and the fact that he just made him look so ordinary at times it's going to be up there, isn't it, for not just this half season but the remainder of the season as well. And Andrew, you're up.
Yeah, the Ravens was the easy one there, but so I'll go for the Lions and the meetup. Given the last kind of 2 years we've had, it was pretty nice to actually see people in person again, and more importantly, a fourth quarter that we could completely be relaxed and just get the drinks in.
That was, yeah, I think you've actually chosen my one there. As inevitably, I thought Baltimore would go first. But yeah, the Lions game was pretty epic, and there were certainly some, even in our haze. I'm going to be honest with your listeners. I think a few of us had a few cheeky sherbets before and after that game. Some of the moments in that game, like the pass out to Chris Evans and Mixon's block. Although the Bengals, we say, were favourite for that game, they weren't necessarily expected to run away with that, and they just handled the job so well. And the meetup as well, that was absolutely epic, and the fans that turned out for that day, in a post-pandemic world, it made it feel like a real special occasion. It was absolutely epic. If I'm going to say what my favourite moment of the season, you've probably chosen all the obvious too, but I'm going to go with the Vikings game, winning at the gun in overtime. To expect McPherson just to step up in his debut game and to do that was absolutely, I thought, took some stones. I think it actually set us up. That win actually set us up on course for the latest successes of the season. The Vikings are a much better team than probably their record indicates. So as a win, I think it does look better and better on par each week. But yeah, it's a long way to go. But as 9 games in, I think we've chosen some fantastic moments there thus far. Obviously, last season we came away with probably a few more wins than expected. Mainly, and being the highlight being the Pittsburgh game. A number of heroes from that Pittsburgh game are no longer on the roster. So, for those who actually are on the roster from that last season, who do you think is to be the most improved thus far? Or it doesn't have to be a player, an area which has most improved. And I think Paris, as a debutant, will let you go first this time.
I was going to say Logan Wilson, but he's been a bit off for the last couple of games. I think the linebacking core as a whole has been much improved. Akeem Davis-Gaither, Jermaine Pratt, even Bailey coming in and helping out on certain snaps. I think they've been much improved in coverage, tackling, just a much better unit. I mean, it's always been a weakness of the defense, probably, since the days of Burfict, I'd say, really. It's been a big weakness. So, I think the linebacking core is much improved.
Yeah, I think you're not. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong there, but it has been much more improved. And in my time as a Bengals fan, I've never really known us to have a stellar linebacking core. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination we're a stellar linebacking core this season, but it has been better. Although you'd argue in the last couple of games,
it's been a bit.
Maybe. Do you think it's Jamie or Andrew that come in? Is it somewhere is that an area that we'd identify as being most improved, or to be a response to Paris's answer there?
I mean, I have to wait and see because as good as Logan Wilson was through the first 5 games of the season, his last 2 games have been absolute disasters. And maybe he can recover from that. I think the linebacker core is going to be affected by the loss of Akeem Davis-Gaither, who looks like he's down for a while. Jermaine Pratt's looked okay, and probably looked more okay than he has done in previous years. But it's a wait and see for me.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Andrew, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, as I was going to say the same. It's been a great start, and it's been very up and down across the unit. So let's see how it shapes out over a full season.
while you're on Dockers, do you have a candidate for most improved player, most improved area?
Yeah, I'll go for the full defensive line, really. Second in the NFL in pressures, and they're getting home too. They're top 6 in sacks, I think I saw. Trey Hendrickson has been as advertised for the money we spent. I was nervous, but he's been as advertised. I think he was leading the lead at pressures at some point. He's still going well up in the numbers. Ogunjobi's been a steal for the money he's on. DJ finally healthy has been a great run stopper. And Hubbard, again, great run stopper and actually getting some kind of sacks there as well.
I've got to, you're not wrong. I think Hendrickson, there was an element of nervousness from all Bengals fans, especially stepping into the shoes of Carl Lawson. But he has managed to, it's been so seamless. It's been so good because you've not even had to debate it. His range, his movement, and clearly the experience he's had of playing for the Saints on a good team in the NFC, which I think you could argue has been a stronger of the conferences, has definitely complemented the Bengals this season. Although, I mean, personally speaking, I think the pass rush has somewhat dissipated a little bit in the last few games. Maybe that's a result of some of the play calling. Maybe that's a result of just the factor that it's been more the short game of the run game has been our nemesis yet again. But yeah, I think that the D line itself has been pretty damn good. I completely agree about Hubbard about getting the pressures in there. He's just showing his experience is coming through. But do you think things could have been, if we had Osai in the team, Jamie, could things have been even better?
I mean, Osai flashed during the preseason, and obviously that's given us a bit of an appetite for him in future. We just don't know whether he's going to make it at this level. Obviously, the injury will set him back a bit. He's exciting, and when at the point of him being drafted, it looks a good pick. It's just whether he's able to step in there a bit. I am a little bit. I'm going to piss on the barbecue here, I think. But there are some disappointments with Ogunjobi and Hendrickson in that they are all or nothing players. We had a stat off from Joe Goodberry this week, and I'll freely admit that I steal most of my opinions from Joe Goodberry's Twitter. It's a great place to go. But Ogunjobi and Trey Hendrickson are both top 20 in the league for missed tackles. And that was painfully apparent last week against Nick Chubb and the Browns. They ran straight at Hendrickson, and that there wasn't much he could do to stop that. And maybe he is a little bit too one-dimensional. I mean, it is better to have defensive linemen that are one-dimensional rather than defensive linemen who are no-dimensional, like we had last year in some of the guys that we picked up during the season. But it is a concern.
I think when you say they're all or nothing, I think we're not the only necessarily the only team guilty of that. When you look at, say, I think even look at the Browns with Clowney and Garrett, they are all or nothing. They are all or nothing pass rusher, but they carry that reputation with them, which arguably makes you think twice about your play calling or some of the throwing. So they are all or nothing, but I don't necessarily think that is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just when when the linebacker play comes into play here that we need to adapt. And I mean, last season we didn't. Linebackers might not have been there, but this season we have adjusted. I would love to see a bit more pass pressure from the linebacking core, but with a 4-3, are you necessarily going to do that and sacrifice coverage? Lou doesn't seem to think so, but then the last two games, it's been a bit of a mess, really. So Jamie, Your most
for most improved, I'm actually going to go for a name. I'm going to go for a single player rather than a position group, because I think the position group hasn't improved that massively. But I think Quinton Spain has very much stepped up to the mark and has cemented himself as the starting left guard. He came in mid-season. It was a heck of a mess last year, and he didn't look great. He looked better than what had gone before, but what had gone before was obviously Alex Redmond. But he stepped in. He looks competent. He looks good. So that's one offensive line position ticked off. We're now just left needing a centre and possibly a right guard at this point. But Quinton's done his job.
Well, I'm a bit annoyed at you, Jamie, because he was my selection as well. I mean, getting him off the heap, slotting him in. I mean, last season he wasn't great, but this season he definitely has been working on his overall play, and he certainly is. It's a position which you don't even have to think about. It's a nice nice problem to have. I'm actually going to go on the offensive line as well, and I think a bit of an unsung hero here in Jonah Williams. We've all been talking about the fact, and some people on this very chat about we need a left tackle, we need a once a generation guy coming out of Oregon, Penny Sewell, who's at the Lions. All of that going on in the background, and with the emergence of Jamar Chase, I think Jonah Williams has quietly done a very, very sturdy job in protecting that blind side of Joe Burrow this season. Also giving us the context that the fact he lost his first season due to injury. He's actually in his third season. I think it's his third or fourth season out of Alabama. He's actually 6 months younger than Joe Burrow himself. I think there still needs to be questions still being raised about whether we do sign him up for an extension. I personally wouldn't have any issue with it whatsoever. I think he does a good enough job at left tackle to cement to be an NFL starter. But I think overall he has been consistently one of the better players in the offensive line. And I think even though Garrett did eventually get to Burrow, but let's face it, Garrett gets to everyone. Looking at PFF grading, he actually had a really good game versus the Browns. And I think, that he's been by far and away the most improved area. So for looking at the most improved, we've had two guards in the offensive line. The offensive line was supposed to be the worst defensive line in the history of mankind. The Bengals were putting out. We've addressed the D line as well, which again you see has been a core element to our success, and also the linebacking core, which Paris made that's a really positive argument about the fact that we're using them in play. Is it disappointing though that none of us have mentioned the obvious, Numa Nueve, the number 9 himself under center? What do we think about
that? I think. Sorry, Jamie, you go.
All right. I think this is going to be an awful one to do, but I think Joe Burrow might have taken a quarter step back, and I think it is probably due to the injury and possibly trying to do too much at once. There are issues with Joe Burrow and throwing interceptions, which is the major knock on him at the moment. I'm sure he'll get over it. I'm sure he'll sort it out, but it is starting to become something that's harming the offense.
Dockers.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. If you look at the statistics and you see the guy leads the league in yards per completion, top 3 in touchdowns, top 5 in passing yards, ahead of Kyler Murray, Herbert, Josh Allen, and only 37 yards behind Mahomes, you think it tells a completely different picture to what we've seen in the game? I think it's not necessarily the interceptions and the volume that he does lead the league into interceptions. That is bad, and he's top 4 in being sacked, and he's not creating scramble yards. but it's the situations he's creating these interceptions in. It's the pick six against the Browns. It's killer. You just can't throw those balls, and I think Joe is still kind of learning that.
Yeah, I put my neck on the block here. After the Jags game, and I largely credited with him in the second half turning that round from a situation where we were, quite frankly, we were toilet. We turned it around for a win. He then gives his "I couldn't have gone to war with a group of men" speech, where the whole locker room just obeyed his every command. His performance in Baltimore was one of the best I can remember from a Bengals QB. But it's the manner of the interceptions. Although I would add, there's been plenty of occasions where tipped balls from his own receivers. And I wish that and I've been saying this for 10 years now, I wish there was a stat to put on wide receivers the many times they tip the ball and it goes for an interception. But then there are those absolute ones where he does have a brain fart. The Packers game comes to mind. And the Browns game comes to mind. Those are two which absolutely stink the house out. But he's still, for a league experience, still he's still a very young man. He could still get better, and I won't question his reading of the game or his analysis of the game. I do think that interception, it's the situational play does need improving. But with Joe Burrow, I think he's one of these players that quietly over the bye weekend, he'll just be sitting there extremely pissed off. And he's one of these that will no doubt rip a new one into a teammate's coming. I think he more or less did that against the Lions game. He ripped them a new one, and then that's exactly what you want from the QB. But yeah, it's disappointing that, following the season recuperation, the investments we've made, he's arguably speaking, he's not the most improved player. I mean, we're starting a bit of a downer here, aren't we? We're making him sound like a god. Is he? We spent number one overall pick, and he's just not. He's not the answer. But I think he will improve. He will improve over time. Maybe it's the coaching, maybe it's the play calling.
I've just pulled a cracker of a statistic here. Pro Football Reference sponsored this show, obviously. Pro Football Reference, big shout.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bad throw percentage. Percentage of throws per pass attempt, excluding spikes and throwaways. Joe Burrow, 11.9%, the lowest bad throw percentage in the league. It just shows it is situational. It is just these horrible situations. Whether he's getting some love for the tip drills again there, perhaps that's being taken out of his bad throws.
You see, the one way I think we can avoid this is actually we don't stick to the run game enough. I think we're still doing that lovely Bengals trait of abandoning the run all too quickly. I mean, Mixon for me is having a great year, but he's not necessarily. He could have a better year. He could have a much better year, but it's whether who's doing the play calling, who's in charge, wants to lean the game onto Mixon's shoulders. I mean, second half of the season, do we think there might be a change in our view of improving player overall? When Jamie Quinton Spain, do you think he could be overtaking him, or do you think he's got that hunger for a new deal? And we're going to see.
Yeah, it's hard to tell who's going to break out or who's going to do something. And with the question of a most improved player, it's someone who you don't expect to do something. I very nearly picked Eli Apple for this, and if it wasn't for last week against Cleveland, I would have done that.
I'm sorry, Jamie, but I think you have.
Someone boot him from the chat.
You get trash.
No, I want to hear this. I want to hear what your defense was. I think this is absolutely. This is
because he's gone. He went from week 1 and week 2. He was appalling, and he was absolutely dreadful. And then he came into his own. He wasn't great. He was good enough, but that was a massive improvement on what gone before. And then last week he just got torched again. So yeah, maybe it's something like that where someone who is, I mean, you'd love to see it from a Jackson Carman or Hakeem, someone to step in or Trey Hopkins, to be honest, because Trey Hopkins has had an absolute stinker, and we might well get on to him in the next section.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty guaranteed that we might well do. But I've got a huge list for that next bit.
On Eli, I think Lou knew from his time in the Giants how he works well, how he doesn't work well. And he's a very physical, long guy, and he works in kind of coverage in tight spaces. If you get him isolated in single coverage and deep downfield, it just happens. Every play is burned by 4 or 5 yards, and he just loses the guy. So it's just not a guy that teams can scheme into him. It's just not a guy you can consistently play. He can be depth, but he can't be a starter.
Right, I'm going to have the last word on Eli Apple chat. Thank God. When you're making Donovan Peoples-Jones, who, hands up, I watch a lot of Michigan football, watches every single fan turns this off now. When you're making him look good, and he was bloody awful at Michigan, when you're making him look good, you know something's very, very wrong. And that's how
he's starting to turn it on in the league, though.
Don't.
He's starting to become a guy.
He did have Shea Patterson throwing to him as well. Don't forget that.
Well, yeah. Michigan doesn't believe in QBs, you know that well. Anyway, we had a question from Peter Dadswell of this parish.
Who's that? I don't
know.
Dadswell. Don't know.
I don't of this parish anyway. He's asked a question. Biggest surprise of the mid-season thus far? And he's suggested, is it Anarumo's coaching and play calling of the defense, or Burrow's excessive interception rate? Paris, let's over to you.
I think it's got to be the interception rate, isn't it, really? I mean, up until the Jets game, it probably would have been Anarumo's calling, but we've sort of reverted back to type, haven't we, really? From the previous 2 years. I mean, a lot of, it was almost deja vu, really, watching the Browns and Jets game. So, yeah, I don't think anybody would have expected Burrow to lead the league in interceptions. I don't think anybody would have expected that. He's usually been a pretty accurate quarterback and looks after the football. So he's had more of like a gunslinger mentality this year. And I know there's always been a bit too much hero ball, really. I think he's got to remember he's not in college anymore. He can't keep throwing ball into danger. So, yeah, I think it's definitely Joe Burrow.
Sad. If poor old Joe getting absolutely hammered on this show and on the podcast. Other than those two, Paris, do you have any other surprises thus far, positive or negative?
I'd say the lack of Tyler Boyd's been a pretty disappointing surprise, really. He had a great game against the Jaguars, and then he's just not being used. He just basically disappeared. I mean, all the targets seem to be going to Chase and T. Higgins, and I mean, they're not even really. I mean, especially Higgins, he's not really making the most of his targets for the last couple of weeks, really. I mean, I think he got targeted about 15 times against the Jets, but only maybe caught about half of them. I think, I need to get Tyler Boyd far more involved. He's one of the best slot receivers in the league, and I think he only had 2 targets against the Browns. That's just it's not enough.
Okay, Jamie,
yes.
Who's your surprise thus far? Respond to Dadders.
Oh, the surprise of Anarumo as well. I've restarted calling Lou Anarumo Poo Anarumo at this point. It was such a mess, the Jets game. It really was, and he was completely devoid of any sane defensive kind of scheme, game plan. Yeah, you have. God bless Mike White. He's making a living at the moment, and this is his time in the light. But he was not doing anything special against us. He was throwing 9-yard passes to an open guy.
He didn't throw a
over and over
10-yard
again.
pass.
There's
Yeah.
5 check downs. So just check down after check down.
Yeah, yeah, and at no point did they think, oh, he's all of this stuff's going underneath. Maybe we can bunch up a bit. Try and get him to throw over the top of us. Now I know that the Jets are doing quite a lot of misdirection stuff. They're doing. I think they had a toss pass that went further than 10 yards, which might have been how they sort of addressed that particular risk, but. That's not a sustainable way to win a football game. What is a sustainable way to win a football game is to have your guy throw it 20 times for 10 yards or for less than 10 yards and go from there. So, yeah, Lou Anarumo is currently in my bad books. In fact, the entire coaching staff is on shaky ground with me after somewhat calling a ceasefire with them earlier on in the year. I am starting to get the noise out again.
I can't believe any of you, and I wish I'd picked this guy from Most Improved. I'm going to get his name pronounced horribly wrong, but I think Uzomah.
Yeah,
it's
lovely.
He's been a bundle of fun to watch this season. He really wants that new deal. And I mean, his effort against the Jags was fantastic. Just barreling through there. Dockers, you're surprised it was not Lou Anarumo or Joe Burrow bashing or Eli Apple praising?
I could talk about the Jets game for an hour and a half.
Let's not.
I think it's negative, and it's two things. One, that we're worse in missed tackles this year than we are last year. That's been an absolute shambles considering some of the names that made the field last year. Again, some of it is on that pass rush, and I'm coming onto that. I don't mind the pass rush getting too aggressive and missing tackles if the linebackers are good enough to be there as second contact, and I don't think they are. And I think the scheme comes into this again. I think the linebackers are far too far back from the line of scrimmage. I think they've done well against the pass across the middle of the field. Maybe that plays into it, but they've just not been good at kind of getting that second contact right after the first contact. But my main one is probably not a surprise, but it's the O-line and their inability in the interior to kind of run the ball still. We have hitting contact probably inside yards pretty much most plays. Mixon has done well, especially outside the tackles, running behind the left tackle with Jonah and stuff has been good, but up the middle has been pretty dire. We just haven't been able to get good yards up the middle.
Yeah, it has. Well, the one word Hopkins, Paris, Trey Hopkins.
What was that? Hopkins?
Trey Hopkins. Discuss.
I mean, yeah, he was in my needs to do better, right at the top of the pile. I feel a bit harsh because I think they rushed him back too soon. When you consider he tore his ACL in January, I think they should have had a contingency plan in place instead of relying on a 6th round rookie to come in and play meaningful snaps. They could have signed Austin Reiter, who's the starting centre for the Chiefs. He'd have been fine as a stopgap, good in pass protection. They could have even maybe traded for Rodney Hudson from the Raiders. I mean, I think the Cards got him for 5th or 6th round pick. He's one of the best centres in the league. I think. I just don't think they did enough to cover him, and I think they've sort of rushed him back really. And I think as a result, his plays suffered. And is he ranked? I think he's 32nd, isn't he? 31st to 32nd out of all centres in the league. So yeah, I think he's not getting enough push, and I think they rushed him back too soon.
Yeah, he coming off an MCL though. Coming off an MCL is pretty damn tough in that position. Yeah. It just feels like since we drafted Billy Price and Frank Ragnow went a position ahead.
Could have been.
We've never recovered it, have we? We just never seem to have addressed it. Just a quick one comments. Craig Johnson, who day from a table at Skyline Chili?
Oh, I want Skyline. So can you send me some Skyline in a jiffy bag? I don't know if it'll get through customs or anything, but I'd quite happily like that flopping through my letterbox in a few days.
A big shout out to our sponsor Skyline Chili there. From
Skyline
Jamie.
Chili. It's tasty on the way in, and even tastier on the way out.
Oh God! Oh dear. Oh, speaking of one disaster to another. Dockets.
Speaking of absolute shite.
Who needs to improve?
I mean, Trey is the best out there. Yeah, it's hard. Spain's been good, but yeah, on the other side of him, he's not had much help with the revolving door of Carmen and whoever else we're putting out there. Hopefully, Adeniji can kind of cement the spot. I don't think he was very good against the Browns, but I did like the bits I saw of him last year. But yeah, I'll go for Trey Hopkins.
We've where you mentioned Jackson Carman there, the revolving door. Slightly different positions, but who's worse, Bobby Hart or Jackson Carman?
Oh, Bobby Hart, 100%.
Yeah, Bobby Hart.
It's his lack
of
amazing.
Sorry, Paris.
Go for it, Paris.
I mean, yeah, you see all the pictures of him, just nowhere near players and just letting players run past him. He's just, on-field effort's not there, and I don't think he's much of a locker room guy either, really. So I'm glad we're rid of him, to be honest.
Good old Bobby Hart is on the Titans roster.
He's the worst I've ever seen, and I've seen some bad ones over the years. He is just.
Is he worse?
Not even like the first.
Is he worse than Abehi, Cedric? Is he worse than Cedric?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Oh, by a mile. Cedric Wade's turned himself into an okay NFL backup player. Bobby Hart has never been that and never will be that. He's just an embarrassment. But I mean, he's not even the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen. He's just the worst NFL player I've ever seen. He's up there with Ifeanyi Oholeti, probably Bauer-Jew, used to play for the Chargers, was dreadful. But yeah, I hate Bobby Hart, and he astounds me that he's still going in this league.
Speaking of right tackles, we've not mentioned Riley Reef yet.
It's a sign of a good right tackle, isn't it?
I was going to say, yeah. He's been quiet.
That's good, though. If you're not talking about it, it means he's doing his job. It means he's being solid.
The worrying thing with Bengals and with tackles who we don't talk about because they're reliable is we tend to release them far too early.
Yeah, not pay them. Yeah,
and in some cases they're still playing in the league.
Yeah, don't that still hurts.
Oh boy. Anyway, moving on. We've had a few more comments in the who's watching. So on Facebook, Matthew Morris says, "Flings flopping through the letterbox sounds worrying." Yep, I probably wouldn't disagree with that. And Ceiling Cat, who's I believe watching on YouTube, the new uniforms are looking good though, eh? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. One area we have improved is definitely the uniforms this season. Absolutely been absolutely epic. Anyone got a favourite?
I love the white and white.
For me, the best. Well, I like the orange with black pants. We haven't worn that. We seem to wear the white pants with the orange every time, which I think looks awful. But the orange and black looks great.
Dockers?
Yeah, I prefer the old white colour rush if I'm honest. So I'm gonna go black and orange.
Yeah,
but we all agree we must never wear black on black ever again. Because we have an appalling record. We are absolutely shockingly poor. So it's come to, we've gone through our favourite moments, most improved. I think we probably covered it, players who who need to improve, and a few players that we have little hope for.
Can I throw a spicy one in on that one?
Of course,
because I've not had a chance to this, but Jesse Bates needs to get his arse in gear, I think.
Yeah.
If he wants to, we're talking about having a big extension for a guy. He was very good the first couple of years, and it started to step back a bit.
He has stepped back, but he still is a very good, one of the better safeties in the league. And on the face of it, if we don't draft a guy, who will we replace him with? I mean, I think he's going to get. I personally think he's going to get franchise tagged anyway.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that might be a smart play. I think from a business side, give him another year, so he gets on.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else who we think is, I suppose, in the Jesse Bates mold who needs to improve?
No. Well, there is, but no.
Sweet.
I'll
Okay,
say that. Oh, go on.
No,
we're in a part of the season where normally we're so horrific. We're already in draft season. If the season ended today and we were 16th, what would you be looking for as your first pick, position-wise? I'm going to say cornerback.
It's cornerback, defensive end, or interior O-line. Those are the three pressing needs. I think you've got Linderbaum from Iowa, the center. He's been fantastic. You've got 3 or 4 top cornerback prospects, and there seems to be quite a line prospects. I mean, arguably even the first 3 rounds should probably be addressing all of those areas, I'd say. But yeah, I'd say cornerback. Yeah, I don't know. I think any one of those 3, they're all needs. I think Trey Waynes is probably going to be cut, so corner's going to be a huge need.
Get me a game-changing linebacker mid-first round. That would certainly paper over some of the cracks with the rush defense, and maybe that's our next step. I think at this point we've got a shell of a team, and it's finding new shiny bits to go on it, so we can have one run at it while Joe's still on his cheap deal.
Yeah, I was going to say linebackers number 2, and then maybe interior defensive lineman. Even if Ogunjobi returns, there's just not much depth pressure behind him. You've got kind of run stoppers, but you've not got much push in the middle still.
When you say linebackers, do you mean like a sort of Micah Parsons type, or Isaiah Simmons, someone who's quite versatile?
Anyone that can tackle.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that would help. But yeah, I think if you are going to go linebacker, it's got to be someone who can play a bit of nickel, can play a bit of safe, can move all around the defense.
The JOK type. Yeah.
You see, I'm of the view that we're still lacking in a bit of pass rush, and that we are only one injury away from having 0 pass rush in the bad old days of 2019 and 2020. Now, I know Asai is to come back, but we don't know what condition he'll be coming back in. I mean, the obvious answer is, it's probably Thibodeau, if that's right.
He'll be long gone.
Oh, he'll be long gone.
I hope you were not picking that high, yeah.
Well, unless we make a mad trade, but that's just not going to happen, is it? I think we do need to address that pass rush still, and given who we are facing the league in our division, that does need to be addressed. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do pick high, in the first round for a pass rusher. But I think the immediate answer looks like it is going to be like cornerback, probably in the first round. The Bengals love to pick a cornerback in the first round. It's when I first really got into the analytical side of things, it seemed to be the bread and butter, like Draker Patrick and Denard, etc. I don't think really that much has changed. So yeah, maybe source from Cincinnati, maybe source from the Bearcats.
Yeah.
Maybe not the only guy coming over from Cincinnati. Maybe someone in the coaching department might fancy the Bengals gig. We never know. Let's see how the season goes. Speaking of saying in the draft and what I have proposed to talk about next is actually the remainder of the season, so the remaining 8 games. So I'll just list out in order what the season looks like. So our next game on the 21st of November is in Vegas, and who knows what team Vegas are going to be putting out by then, given that all the antics which are going on there. We then have on the 28th, we have the return game at home to our lovely friends down the Ohio River, the Steelers. On the 5th, it's at home to of the Freezer Bowl. It's the Chargers, and Justin Herbert gets to sling it around, and Joe Burrow gets to respond by slinging it around as well. We're then followed by yet another home game. It's the 49ers, who season's probably, you'd argue, in a bit of disarray. Then away at a resurgent Denver, who are somehow 5-4 and had a very impressive win in Dallas last week. Then at home to the Ravens on Boxing Day. Hopefully, Bengals can repeat a similar Boxing Day massacre as we did to the Ravens in the away game. Then on the 2nd of January, it's home to the Chiefs. Who know? Again, that's arguably what I was looking at. I was looking forward to that game, getting my home as in Paul Brown Stadium to see the crowd effects. Basically, how many Chiefs fans are going to be there compared to Bengals fans, the way things are going. But it could well be vice versa. And then finally, it's on 9th of January, we get to go a trip to Cleveland to return pleasantries to the Browns. So, with that list in mind, Paris, do you have a prediction for the remainder of the season? And would you like to talk to us about it?
I'm trying to be, optimistic. I'm trying to think, whether I be optimistic or truthful, really. I think the Raiders game is a real sort of fork in the road game. I think if they win that one, they go 6-4. You're feeling a lot better about the season. You forget the ugliness of the last couple of weeks, and I think you can push on from there. But I think if we lose that, drop to 5-5, you've lost 3 in a row. I think there's a good chance the season just collapses, and we may only win 1 or 2 the rest of the way. So, we've got 5 out of 8 at home. So you'd like to think at home, you might win a couple more than if you're away, but I don't know. Optimist in me says we'll go 4-4, but I could quite easily see 1 or 2 wins the rest of the way.
We're lowballing the start perhaps from Paris there.
Yeah.
Dockers, can you save our season?
I think Paris the Raiders is a huge game after a bye, after the mess we've seen on defense the last 2 weeks. The second half was always going to be brutal, and it's always going to be how we judge this kind of the staff. We're healthy, we're in the mix for the playoffs, so they have no excuses on that end in terms of kind of getting people ready. But it's a huge 2 games really if you include the Steelers there. If you can go beat the Raiders, beat the Steelers, that is a huge momentum going into a brutal back 6 you mentioned against very good NFL coaches. So I could see us getting to the 7-4, but I could see us then sliding to 8-9 and just taking 1 win, like Paris said. I can't see more than 10 wins total. That's my biggest optimist. I can't see more than 10. I'm going to go. It's a coin toss between 8-9, 9-8. If it was a 16-game season, it would be 8-8 all day for me. So
8-1.
8-1. There we go. James called it 8-8-1. That's what it's going to be.
That is the most typical Bengals season, isn't it? I suppose 8-8-1. Taking that forward, I would be happy with 8-8-1. I personally think that my prediction to start the season, we were a 9-8, 8-9 team, and going 5-2 has somewhat distorted that view with the way we were playing. But really, I think we're probably out where we're supposed to be. Jamie,
right? We come out of the bye week.
a trip to Vegas, which would have been brilliant, wouldn't it, for the damn pandemic? But there you go.
Yeah. So we come out of the bye week firing. You know, we beat Vegas. I think that's a great win. You know, we're starting to get back on side with the team. You know, then we go into the next week. We've got Pittsburgh at home. We beat Pittsburgh, and you know everyone in the pub's going crazy. It's a great night. Then we come up against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and I don't think we beat them. And then we're looking at the final 5, and it's not good. It's not pretty looking. I think we'll beat San Francisco, but the rest of the way, it's not looking great. And I have serious doubts about this team's ability to get the job done with the chips down. And, you know, it comes back to coaching again. I'm not sure. I don't think we've got the guy stood on the sideline, stood in the locker room at the figurehead of the organization who is going to be able to, when all is said and done, get this team into the playoffs. And for that reason, I think it's 8-9. And I think it's 8-9 with a massive back end collapse.
There's a real scare that if we do lose that game against the Raiders, you then have that worry against the Steelers. You could just go winless. There is that chance because of how strong that back end and how much unnerving there is about the coaching staff and their ability to turn around the slide. That isn't a non-existent possibility.
I think
eight teams left, 8 games left. 7 of them are playoff contenders, and you know we're in that mix. We deserve to be in that mix off our good games, but the bad games have been very bad, and I don't see that much of a recovery. I hope I'm wrong. God, it'd be funny if I'm wrong, but you know we'll see.
Here's a question. Here's a question for you, Jamie. How many wins does Zach/Lou need to keep their jobs in the remainder of the year?
Mike's very Mike Brown. Not Mike Smith. Mike Brown is very loyal to coaches, and I think that you know if they get us to 8-9, they're probably staying. But the mood, if it ends 8-9 after the start we've had, and the manner in which that would come, would mean that it would be a very, very, very spicy time in Cincy. Yeah, I don't want it to happen, but I don't trust them yet.
So the 3 of you have given your predictions, and consistently there is a real fear about a state of collapse. My question is to the 3 of you, and probably to the wider community actually. Is there a real problem with resilience with this team? We show a lot of explosiveness on the offense at times. On the defense, we can look absolutely stellar. But when the chips are down, are we resilient enough to overcome that? Paris, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I mean, you know, traditionally, especially, you know, in the Andy Dalton days, you know, when the lights shine brightest, that's when we'd, you know, play our worst. But I feel like Joe Burrow is the sort of guy who in prime time, you know, will probably play his best. I feel like that's the time that, you know, he really switches it on. But, you know, as Jamie said, whether the coaching staff can be trusted to deliver when it truly matters remains to be seen. I don't know. As I said, I mean, earlier in the season, I would have said that, you know, playing in prime time, playing in big moments wouldn't have mattered. But the last couple of weeks makes me think that, yeah, maybe we can't. Maybe, you know, the attention and being top of the AFC, when, you know, it's just too much for them to handle.
Go on, Doc. That's sorry, Dockers.
I'm trying to bring a bit of positivity. I just don't know if there's enough alcohol in order. If, and this is a huge if, but you win those first 2, the Chargers haven't been amazing. They've been very up and down. Herbert has basically dragged them to the record they have. The 49ers are still coin flipping quarterback at the minute. Broncos, amazing defense, but offensively, nothing special. You've beaten the Ravens once. Maybe somehow it happens again. I still can't believe the Chiefs are the record they are, but who knows? Maybe something's gone entirely kaput there. And then the Browns as a revenge game. That's my best attempt at trying to say we can win them all.
I mean, obviously the talent's there. The talent is there on our team to win any of these games. And you know, you want to inject a bit of positivity in there. If Jamar Chase gets going against any of these teams, they're toast. If Joe Burrow's throwing darts and not throwing daft interceptions, they're toast. If we're getting the ball going on the ground, they're toast. If we're sacking teams, if we're sacking quarterbacks and causing turnovers and not missing tackles, and we've got a sound defensive game plan that doesn't involve sitting 15 yards back and letting a rookie quarterback dink and dunk the way to 500 yards, then, you know, these teams are beatable. It's just, you know, can the team be engineered into a position where we can win? And I'm not sure.
I'm going to be a little bit more positive here and try and wrap this question up. Raiders, well, they're playing to lose now because, quite frankly, half the squad is either in jail or it's been released. They are desperate to finish up as the worst record as possible and just start again. They've got no interest in winning that game, no interest in beating us whatsoever. So that's the win. The Bengals game against the Steelers, well, the opportunity to actually destroy the Steelers, any sense of hope, is one far too great. They're not. I mean, Big Ben's still there, but they haven't got the tight ends to convert those third down conversions. Yeah, the refs are on their side, but I think we'll just, by a matter of fact, we'll still torture them. We can do it in Pittsburgh. We can do it in Cincy. The Chargers game, I think that's where we lay the egg. We typically do against teams like San Diego. So yeah, I'll take that one as a loss. We learn our lessons and we live again. The 49ers. They're a mess. They don't want to win a game. They're in complete reset mode. There's a win. Away at the Broncos. Well, in Mile High Stadium, McPherson's just going to be kicking 60, 70-yard kicks all day. So we'll just win on field. We're going to win on field goals alone. We'll be absolutely fine. We'll be absolutely fine there. Burrow can't throw interceptions because the thin air is going to make him overthrow it every time. So we're going to toast them. The Ravens, well, we've beaten them once already. It's December the 26th. It's after Christmas. They're not going to travel here. It's going to be a bit of a bear pit. I think both teams are probably looking at playoff football, so gentleman's agreement. Bengals easy. Bengals win there. The Chiefs, Andy Reid and clock management. That's still yet to come out yet. That still hasn't reared its ugly head. And Mahomes, you think Burrow's throwing interceptions? Mahomes can't even dare not throw it long at the moment. So how's that going to change? You know, you never know. That might be Jesse Bates' contract game. You could have the game of his life. I think that could be a win at the gun there. On the way at the Browns, revenge time, or 3 teams of the AFC North go into the playoffs. And we might have already wrapped it up by then, given the state of the AFC. Given the state of the AFC this season, who knows? Will be number 1 seed by then. So I don't think it'd be that. That's my positive note. I think at most we could probably get about, with a good win, 5 or 6 wins. What worries me if we go say 8 and 9 or 9 and 8 is draft purgatory, picking in that mid section where nothing really gets better, and you're just replacing like for like, and half the time we never seem to have the creativity in the draft anyway to improve ourselves. That would be my greatest worry going ahead. While we've been chatting away, we've had another question from Ceiling Cat on YouTube who asks, any thoughts on Katie Blackburn joining the competition committee? And
that's nice.
She's the first female to actually join the competition committee. So congratulations, first and foremost, Katie. But any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, obviously she'll be behind whatever the next stupid rule emphasis is. So this might take my view of what's going on there. But yeah, as long as she doesn't have this, the taunting rule is gone far too crazy this year. And they do it every year. They do it every year with a different rule, which they call stupidly. And I don't see that changing. Hopefully, she is a breath of common sense. But we're thinking about the leadership of the NFL and common sense, and I'm not there.
She could get targeting as reviewable.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, we could actually be allowed to tackle. We could actually be allowed to, that. I'd be a fan of that. I'd be a fan of that as well. But yeah, I think it's nothing but a positive, really. And it's about time that the Bengals. I know Mike Brown's been on the owners' committee, hasn't he? Since
the dawn of time.
Yeah,
well, there's always been a Brown presence. I mean, imagine that. A Brown presence been always on that committee. But yeah, it's refreshing to see that we're making headway. We're making actually outreach to the rest of the league by being on the competition committee. So I think it's everything positive. Gentlemen, it's been an hour and a minute of your time. Last words. I'm going to go around. So, Paris, as our debutante, last words, please, on the mid-season.
Well, against the Raiders, just win, just get it done. I mean, they've got the bye week to prepare. There's no excuses. If they don't come out firing after 2 terrible losses, then they're not. But it's never going to happen, is it? Let's face it. So, I hope to see a motivated, hungry team after the bye week.
Dockers.
I probably should just address the Chase stuff. So yeah, fair play. He's been a star. Even with like 2 games under 100 yards the last couple of weeks, he's still top 3 in receiving yards for a wide receiver, which is absolutely mental. Just doesn't happen for rookie wide receivers. So there are exciting weapons there, and the skill positions are super exciting. We just need to kind of convert opportunities and stop wasting mistakes. But yeah, that's my point.
And last but definitely not least, Jamie is going to lead us out with his last words and the notice and all the details about the next meetup.
All right, so my last words for the Bengals will be: please stop playing defense like Division 3 high school team. Just improve. It's really necessary. And then I will move on to the happy details of us all going to Sheffield on the 28th of November. We will be at the Red Lion. I should do this in a Paul Hiron's voice, but I can't quite. I can't quite get it going. My palm was a lot better, but I think 5:30 onwards at the Red Deer on Pitt Street in Sheffield. It's down the little side street that has a subway on it, just off West Street. Any further directions in even more painstakingly granular detail can be provided by me. But it's a lovely little pub. We've got the room upstairs, and come along. Obviously, there is cocoa still about, so if you can get yourselves doing a lateral flow test before you come along, and take whatever boosters you can get your hands on, then that will be great as well.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Paris, Andrew Dockrell, Jamie Rowe. This has been the Bengals roundtable season. And thanking you all for joining us, and we will see you again shortly.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Good day.
Good day.